What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 22. Last time out we got P13 at the Bahrain Grand Prix, and today it is time for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. See, I'm queuing up some simulator training here for our teammate Christian Lundgaard here at Jaguar Racing, and then I'm just going through seeing if there's any R&D that we can do, and in the end I settled for this one, energy store cells positioning, which is a weight redistribution upgrade, going to be useful for redistributing the weight of our car. No more upgrades that we can do at the moment, obviously only 93. Have a quick look through the components, a couple of them already getting a bit worn, particularly the gearbox. I don't think that's making 6 races, so we might need to take a penalty at some point, even with that gearbox reliability upgrade we got. Get the final perk that I can afford at the moment, and then next money I spend will no doubt be on the facilities, but that might not be for a couple videos yet, because we really are making sweet FA at the moment. So yeah, here we are, and it's time for, before we get into Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, it is time for the Pirelli Hot Lap, which is a new feature in this game, which is basically, you know, like challenges that you complete in the supercars that they allow you to feature in your F1 Life profile. This thing was an average speed zone, so it was through a certain sector of Jeddah. You had to have a particular average speed. I'm only showing you my final attempt here, the third attempt. You get 3 attempts, and I had to get 100.75 miles an hour. As you'll see in a second, I don't quite manage it. I get very close, but it's not quite enough. So I only mustered the silver, which I was a bit frustrated about, because the reward for beating this was it was, I think, 1,000 acclaim and $100,000, which would have been exceptionally useful for our team, particularly the money, but also the acclaim to a certain degree. But yeah, instead we're stuck at just 550,000, which is still good. It's still something, but I would have liked to have got the full weight of the reward for completing all of that. But anyway, that's that, and now it's time for the race weekend at Jeddah. I didn't play this track very much in F1 2021. I didn't play it in career mode at all, and I only did it a few times online, so I'm still very much a novice. There's the preview, just talking about what the track is and where we are in the standings and everything. A couple upgrades completed between now and last video. Weight redistribution and gearbox. Saying there could be some rain in qualifying, so we'll see what happens there, but generally I think the risk is quite low. Race will most likely be dry, so it's not too big a deal. Had a quick look through the standings, just confirmed Christian Lundgaard, yep, P15 in the previous race, and the standings are exactly the same. Valtteri Bottas actually did get classified for last race, even though he DNF'd, but I guess it was because it was for a couple laps before the end. And now we're going to get into qualifying. Oh, not qualifying. It's practice, isn't it? Qualifying comes after practice. As per usual, I'll just show you one lap that I did from practice. I think the lap you're about to see is the 3rd or 4th lap that I did during the race strategy simulation. I always do a 5-lap race strategy simulation just so it can give me an accurate, personalized strategy for the race. So here we go. You can see, you know, I'm beating the delta time on lap 3, and then we're going in here to lap 4. This first corner is a bit tricky for me. To be fair, the whole first sector is quite tricky for me. As someone who plays on a pad, I've seen a lot of wheel players are able to take this a lot more smoothly than I am. But you'll see that, I don't know, on a pad I do a lot more sort of like jinky kind of movements, I guess. I have to get out of the throttle a lot, and keep in mind this was like sort of the best lap I had during practice, at least. I did do a couple better ones during qualifying, I would say, but generally speaking, yeah, this was a particularly rough lap. Even though it was one of the better ones I did, you know, I just, through Sector 1 especially, I just felt like I couldn't get the car turned in enough. I don't know if that's because the car needs more drastic aero upgrades, maybe. It's high-speed corner, so it would be aero upgrades. But either way, you know, I'm a long way off Carlos Sainz already. I know he's on softs, but you know, I'm drastically off the pace. Despite that, I am actually in P2 for the session already, and if I improve on this time, then I was gonna say I would improve as well, but now I'm realizing that the target is a 134.8, and I'm 8/10 up on that when my best is a 132.6. So I'm guessing that would have been the quality sim. You see, I tagged the wall on the outside there, no damage though, so I was able to keep going. And yeah, that was probably the best lap I did during qualifying in terms of pure performance and taking a racing line and all that kind of good stuff. Have a look at the quick telemetry here. You see I'm a bit less on tyre life than they expected, so that's good. It means I might be able to push a set of tyres a bit further. And then yeah, my laps were way under the delta, to the point that I was like, wow, honestly my pace here might be pretty good. And yeah, I got P5 in the end in that practice session, so I was pretty happy with that.
And if today's practice is anything to go by, we're in for an exceptional weekend of Formula One.
So yeah, that was that. Ahead of a Mercedes and also a Red Bull, but granted they were on different tyres, so I can't read into it too much. Just skip through all the resource points we got. I did do a couple quick practices, which you didn't see, just to mop up what I didn't get during the one practice session I actually drove. You know, a little bit of a boost to our acclaim, but nothing too major. And then yeah, we're back into the paddock, and we're about to get ready for qualifying. I think, yeah, we got a message here talking about turn 22 being quite a tricky turn, comes up a bit earlier than some people expect. I never really have a problem with any of the turns after Sector 1, so yeah, it wouldn't be a particularly big deal for me. I don't know what I'm looking at here. Oh yeah, we got some resource points, so we're going to be going for an ICE wear upgrade. Yeah, it's like I said before, very important to focus on reliability always. And then I had a quick look at what R&D we've got in progress already. A couple aero upgrades, a chassis upgrade, and a durability upgrade. I was thinking, because I saw that we could afford an engine upgrade, and yet it wasn't recommending that we went for it. I was seeing if we already had an engine upgrade in development, but we don't. I didn't end up going for the development of this spark plugs upgrade though, because I figured if it doesn't want me to spend it, it's because they think that my resource points will be best spent after those upgrades I'm already doing have been completed, and I can afford to do some, you know, maybe slightly more major upgrades. Maybe some that cost 1,000 instead of the classic 500 resource points, but that remains to be seen. So here we are, getting ready for qualifying now. I'm mostly going to speed through this, though. You know, I'll show you. I'll show you one lap, or at least part of one lap that I did. But generally speaking, I'll just show you the sort of times I was achieving. So here is me at the end of my first flying lap around Jeddah in Q1. It was a pretty scruffy lap, like I said. Sector 1 is just not something that I was really on top of at this point. And in the end it was a 132.0, which yeah, I didn't think was going to be fast enough to get out of Q1, or if it was, it would only be marginally. And then here we are on my second flying lap. You see I'm only 700ths up, like I was that one time in Bahrain. This corner, I think, yeah, I don't improve through this corner. It kind of is a bit wider than I think it was on my first flying lap, and so yeah, it's not an improvement, but it was good enough for P15, which meant I just about snuck through to Q2 for the second time in a row. And yeah, I was pretty happy with that. After that, I was like, whatever happens, I don't really care. You know, I've set out what I achieved to set out. That's a completely incorrect sentence. I've achieved what I set out to achieve. I was a bit disappointed with Lundgaard down there in P22, but it wasn't the end of the world. You know, I'm sure he'll come good when the car's a little bit better, when he's had a bit more time to adjust. You know, he was riding a bit of a high coming into the season, so yeah, I won't read into it too much. And apart from that, there were no real shocks in exiting Q1. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. So that was a bit of a surprise. Charles Leclerc DNFing in qualifying. I haven't really seen anything like that before, but yeah, and then he returned to the pits, which brought out a yellow flag there, but I didn't need to slow down because there was no one that I was at risk of overtaking. Sergio Perez comes out ahead of me. I think he eventually moves out of the way on this lap, but speed through a little bit, yeah, this is now the start of my second flying lap, which is the lap I'm actually going to show you from qualifying. And it didn't start particularly well. Obviously that first lap was the one where I kind of had Perez in my way, so I was a bit surprised that I didn't improve initially through sector 1, but you see here suddenly I start making rapid gains on my first flying lap in Q2. It was really surprising that I made up quite as much time as I did. I know I ended up losing a tiny bit of time towards the end there, but still, you know, like I didn't think there was 5 tenths in there. I thought there was maybe like a tenth or two. And then we speed up a little bit towards the end of the lap because I don't really make too many more improvements. It was mostly just that first sector I wanted to show you because that went very well compared to what I was used to. And yeah, the resulting lap is over 7 tenths faster than my first flying lap. It's good enough for a 1:30.7, I think, and that puts us P6 for the session, and we're into Q3. I couldn't quite believe it. I was thinking Q3 already, second race, but it was a good lap, and I guess the AI isn't particularly strong around this circuit because it wasn't even really close. You know, I was almost on the pace of the top 5, and I'm sure they'll improve again, whereas that lap was pretty, you know, like hard locked for me. I don't think I'm going much faster than that. But yeah, Leclerc, definitely the shock of that session. Ocon being as far down as he is a bit surprising. He's massively off the pace. But yeah, I definitely think Leclerc is the one that, you know, he's having a dire start to the season if you think about it. He had a Q2 exit in Bahrain, followed by multiple contact, which left him P16 for the race, and now he's not going to be starting higher than 16 unless there are some grid penalties afoot. Here we are towards the end of my, I think this is my first flying lap in Q3. I did do 2 laps, but the second one there was no improvement, so I ended up just going straight back to the pits. So I'll only show you from the first lap. Just because I don't think I've shown any of me actually driving this part of the sector, and I wanted to, or this part of the track, I wanted to assure you I do drive it. Here I am coming up to the final corner now. It was a decent lap. It wasn't as good as the one I did in Q2 in my opinion, even though, as you're about to see, well, we'll get to the line, and it's good enough for provisional pole. Only by 100th over George Russell, and it instantly gets beaten by Max Verstappen by about a second. But yeah, I guess I had some pace in the car, and it was good enough for P6 in the end. So I was pretty happy with that.
Perez and George Russell. With qualifying wrapped up now, we have our grid lineup for the big race tomorrow. Be sure to join us then for what will no doubt be a fantastic race.
I was actually sitting in 3rd until the very end of the session, so I was almost disappointed to get P6, but I wrote here in my notes P6 on the cards ? And then below it I've just written correct. So yeah, I guess I was a mystic when it came to that kind of thing. Here we go, just getting the acclaim in on the team. It was a mega qualifying, and it really had me thinking to myself, well, what could I do in the race if the qualifying was that good? Because usually the AI is a bit slower during the race than they are in qualifying. But maybe I'm a bit slower during the race than I am in qualifying as well. It's hard to tell. He's just saying don't beat up your front wing or whatever, which, you know, it's easy to do at Jeddah. You know, you go for a move that's a bit ambitious and all of a sudden you find yourself in another car.
So here we are then, welcoming you today to one of the jewels of the Arab world, Jeddah. One of the biggest cities in Saudi Arabia, second only to Riyadh, gateway to Mecca, and one of the biggest ports in the region. And now, host to the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. So let's take a look at the topographical map of the Jeddah Street Circuit. As you can see, a number of challenging corners for the drivers to master here. We'll see just how much the teams have benefited from their time spent in practice this weekend. And like many street circuits, this track has the potential to punish drivers that get it wrong. Let's hope we avoid any safety cars today. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. An immense lap from Carlos Sainz yesterday puts him in pole position. Sergio Perez lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Russell, Verstappen, Robinson and Fernando Alonso, Bottas, Tsunoda, Gasly and Lando Norris, Magnussen, Mick Schumacher, Daniel Ricciardo and Ocon, Hamilton, Leclerc, Guan Yu Zhou and Lance Stroll, Vettel, Albon, Latifi and Christian Lundgaard. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box. Ant, it's fantastic to have you with us here, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the run down into turn one. A bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It'll keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
So yeah, as you saw there, Lewis Hamilton with a grid penalty. The personalised strategy was no different to the projected strategy, so that was not a big deal. But yeah, we're starting P5 as a result of Hamilton's penalty. And I was thinking to myself, well, you know, what can I do here? I got 4 cars in front of me, and my start last race was pretty rapid. So if I get something to that degree this race, who knows what can happen?
We need to make sure the engagement is okay before the start. We're going to want to put some temperature into the tyres and brakes. We need to keep the engine cool though. Don't go too high with the revs.
These guys are no slouches though, so obviously I got to keep my wits about me and make sure that I get a good grid positioning. I can't have any of the shenanigans I had last race where I overshoot the grid slot. I have to really focus and try and get this right. This has actually been quite difficult for me so far. I don't know. I'm very good at going fast. I'm not so good at going slow, especially not into a precise thing. I don't drive in real life, so maybe that affects my ability to park. But yeah, I just about get it right. 0.8 meters, not great, but it'll do. So grid forming up, as Mark is saying, and here we go. Yeah, he actually gets cut off because the grid forms up before he can say the voice line. Lights are on, and we're away. It's a very quick start, and as you can see, it's a very quick launch from me as well. Unfortunately, yeah, Jeddah's not quite the same as Bahrain in terms of runoff area. A lot of walls. Verstappen goes clattering into the side of me there. You know, I try and sweep one around the outside of him. Maybe that was a bit ambitious of me, but we are up into P4 as a result. I probably could have got ahead if it had been a different track of the likes of Russell and maybe Perez as well, but yeah, he cut me off and there was nowhere for me to go, which is why Verstappen was even on my inside to begin with. I probably could have got ahead of him, but you know, time to get my head down. Pulling away from Verstappen a little bit, but Perez is already, you know, by this point at the end of the lap, 2 seconds ahead of me. Verstappen with the massively superior straight line speed over me, the Red Bull powertrain and the better aero package, the Adrian Newey design on his car is working wonders for him right now. So yeah, despite everything, he does actually come into the pits, which I was surprised by, because, you know, I figured if he was able to catch me over the course of the lap, then surely his front wing damage could only have been minor, and maybe he could continue with it, but he didn't seem to think so, and so he, yeah, he did end up stopping to change the front wing, which caught me by surprise a little bit. But let's watch that start again, because that was, it was a pretty decent start on my behalf. If you look at me down there, once the things go away, there we go. You see I'm just caught by George Russell. I try and sweep one around the outside of Verstappen. He's not expecting it. Maybe Alonso goes into the side of him as well, pushes him into me a little bit. I think that's something that can happen at Jeddah a lot. Everyone's very ambitious with the moves that they make, and yeah, unfortunately for Verstappen, it didn't quite pay off for him. But I'm sure that's not the last person you'll see pitting to change a front wing over the course of this race. So lap 3, DRS gets enabled. And then I get the notification that Christian Lundgaard is coming into the pits, and Mark is going to tell me exactly the same thing in just a moment here. So yeah, I was curious as to why that was, and I just about caught it here. You can see Lance Stroll just goes careering into the side of Lundgaard there, and yes, breaks off his front wing, which is a shame because he started, what, 22nd? And he'd already made his way up into P16. And with all these other cars pitting here, you see you've got Magnussen, Tsunoda, Ricciardo all coming into the pits, as well as Verstappen having pitted last lap as well. You know, Lundgaard could have been, you know, on the fringes of the points, potentially, but with the front wing damage, you know, he's basically out of this race already. You know, got to change the front wing there, which means it's an especially long stop. So yeah, I reckon that was probably about 7 or 8 seconds by the end of it, and yeah, just a real shame. He comes out behind all the others, and that puts him down into last place in this race at the moment. Meanwhile, I was catching Russell and Perez ahead. I think they'd been squabbling quite a lot, which meant, you know, I just about got back into DRS range of Russell, despite my brief excursions against the barrier, which, you know, I've noticed this game seems to be a lot more forgiving than previous games, because I have a lot of those and I never seem to break my front wing, so maybe the game's a bit more lenient on that. But Fernando Alonso with superior straight line speed, is he going to go for the move here? Ooh, he certainly thinks about it, and he just has a superior traction through the final corner. So yeah, off he goes, and he gets the DRS as well because he was behind before the detection zone, as was Norris, and so Norris goes through as well. And now these two are going to have a little bit of a squabble for P4. Fernando Alonso obviously in the faster car, but I believe Norris has the higher pace rating in this game, but don't quote me on that. Both exceptional racers and exceptional drivers, and I would do well to stay with them, as unlikely as I think it is, even if I am faster through Sector 1. Through Sector 2 and 3, these guys are hilariously faster than me, as I get a track limits warning there. Just a bit careless of me, really. Let's see a replay of Lando Norris for a little bit. Oh, actually, this is a replay, but this is stuff we haven't seen yet. He kind of has a mega battle with Fernando Alonso throughout lap 5. Going through multiple corners, you can see they're wheel to wheel, but Fernando Alonso, I think, just about backs out of the move there, so they're no longer side by side at this point. But you can see me, I'm clinging on to the back of them. If you look in his wing mirror, you can just about see me on occasion. I'm staying in this fight because these two holding each other up means that they are you know, falling back into my clutches, and perhaps I could start sizing up and move on them through one of the DRS zones. But what it also means, you didn't quite see in the background, but Valtteri Bottas, who was in 7th at this point, yeah, you just saw him there, he was also catching up to the back of us, which meant there was a potential threat behind me. And as you know, pretty much every car on the grid is significantly faster than me at the moment due to the car not having very many upgrades on it whatsoever. And so, you know, if Bottas gets into my DRS range, I'm in a lot of trouble. You can see I go over the track again there. I think I actually got another track limits warning there, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I know I definitely get at least 2 in this race. So yeah, that was potentially where it happened. You see they're going wheel to wheel again through the final corner, holding each other up a little bit, and now I get the run on them with my ERS and DRS. Fernando Alonso has neither. I try and send one up his inside. His outside rather. He looks like he's going to cover me off, but I forced the issue. Norris locks up, and I'm through on both of them, straight down the middle. That was, you know, an ambitious overtake, but I'm really glad I was able to make it work. And now here we are at the end of lap 6, and Norris once again is trying to force the issue on me. You see we're side by side. But apparently there's a gap there, which Valtteri Bottas decides he's going to slip into. A little bit of contact on the front wing there, but his front wing stays in one piece and mine stays in one piece. And now he's getting a bit racy with Norris. You see going down the inside of Norris here as we go into turn 1. Will he make the move stick? Norris around the outside, Bottas on the inside, which means he has the outside for the next corner, and he just about stays ahead. So let's see that from Bottas's perspective. So he's going down the middle between me and Norris. I didn't even realize there was a gap at the time, but he said, "Yep, we're going 3 wide through this corner. I'm sure we can make that work." And then he uses the full width of the track there to stay ahead of Norris, or well, to keep the run on Norris. He's very close to probably getting a warning there for exceeding track limits, I imagine. And all the squabbling, meanwhile, has allowed Pierre Gasly to fall back into the DRS range of myself, and Charles Leclerc is not far behind, and he will be in a much faster car compared to the 4 of us. I think the Ferrari at this point is the fastest car on the grid, but I'm not 100% sure about that. You see, I have an atrocious Sector 1 there, but Gasly has fallen off a little bit. Meanwhile, Leclerc has caught up significantly, and what that means is that I'm going to have a real job on my hands here if I want to keep them behind. So that can usually mean one of 2 things. That can either mean you're about to DNF, or it can mean, the issue's magically going to fix itself shortly. So, I just try to keep on with my race, get my head down, and what happens, Leclerc, with an absolute send on Pierre Gasly there. I couldn't quite believe what I was seeing when he did that. And then we get absolutely bombarded by Mark. He sends about 4 messages, and I my brain is just like, Mark, just calm down, please. But yeah, unfortunately, the engine gives out on lap 8, which was a shame because I think this race was a real chance to get some points, but no points were to be had, unfortunately. The F1 gods said no, thank you. I kind of sit here and stew in it for a little bit before the game eventually decides that it's going to retire me from the session for me. Not a happy bunny, as you can see there, and I wasn't at the time. I wish I had recorded my live reaction to that, but unfortunately I didn't. But I was pretty distraught.
What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
Here come our winners now, a thrilling race and a tremendous effort by Ferrari. Their history is well known, so it's no surprise to fans the world over to see them come out on top once again.
So yeah, Carlos Sainz with his 2nd victory of the season. Leclerc actually managing to recover to the podium, which is very, very impressive given where he started. And yeah, just a good race overall. Sergio Perez on the podium, and yeah, I mean it's looking like these two, Perez and Sainz, might be the championship contenders here. Leclerc with only 1 podium, and Max having some issues as well. So it could be very different to the real life counterparts who have been contending for the championship this season.
So let's see what effect this result has had on the drivers' standings. Carlos Sainz extends his lead at the top, getting ever closer to securing the championship. Some amazing talent out on the track today, but Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
Well, my driver of the day has to be Charles Leclerc. He was unstoppable out on the track today, weaving through the competition with ease.
Let's move on to the constructors. Ferrari take the lead at the top of the table. Another team that excelled today were Williams, who make further progress up the table. Well, that was certainly an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon.
Yeah, I was pretty gutted with this result. I can't lie. I genuinely think this was probably one of the best chances we're going to have to score points all season, because as I've said before, in my experience, when you play on these settings, the car only goes backwards initially. Just a confirmation that Christian Lundgaard ended up finishing 20th, which is the final classified position here. So yeah, not a great result for the team. A weekend to forget after a pretty strong outing in Bahrain. Yeah, I also lose a bit of acclaim there. So that's going to be it. I think next up is Australia, so hopefully that race goes a little bit better than this one went. Only a few damages to the car, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video nonetheless, despite the disappointment. And if you did, please subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.